And this story as well, a BBC correspondent has accused the broadcaster of having a pro-Israeli bias, urging his employer to question the facts of Hamas's attacks on October the 7th. Rami, a Lebanon-based journalist for BBC Arabic, has accused the broadcaster of having a pro-Israel bias, claiming the BBC has failed to properly investigate claims made by Israel about Hamas's deadly incursion into southern Israel last year. In the correspondence, he claimed the BBC had failed to properly investigate claims made by Israel about Hamas and their deadly incursion into southern Israel last year. Let's talk to the Director of Investigations and Enforcement at the Campaign Against Antisemitism, Stephen Silverman. Stephen, good afternoon to you. It's curious, this, isn't it? I've no idea what this journalist is talking about, frankly, but on a wider point, what is interesting is that the BBC have been accused many, many times of actually being neglectful when it comes to accurately reporting what has been happening in Israel, including October the 7th.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, anti-Semitism is often referred to as a virus because it infects society, it spreads through it, and as soon as you think you've inoculated yourself against it, it mutates. And what we're seeing here is one of those mutations. It's a mutation of Holocaust denial. It's an utterly despicable claim to make. And Israel's claims, as he describes them, are based on the video footage that the Hamas terrorists shot themselves on their own GoPro cameras. So, you know, this is nonsense. And it's yet another incident that casts serious doubt on the objectivity of the BBC when it comes to this issue.
And it's interesting, this is, you know, supposedly one of their own. I mean, I don't know what his arrangement is with the BBC. My guess is that he perhaps works as a freelancer, but he's obviously, you know, firing shots at his own bosses, essentially, this man, saying they've got this horribly wrong.
Yeah, he is, but you know, this has been a pretty. He's just one individual, and it's the latest in an unedifying list of events that have taken place that the BBC have been at the centre of since the 7th of October, and even now, you know, for example, even now, when they interview people who make claims about a genocide taking place, there's no correction, there's no challenge. Only a week or 10 days ago, the Joan Donoghue, who was the president of the International Court of Justice until February, when they made an interim ruling on the claim brought by South Africa, had to clarify that they did not find there was any genocide. They did not even find, as bad faith actors keep repeating, that there was plausible evidence of genocide. What they found, in her words, was that the Palestinians have a plausible right to be protected from genocide, and yet this despicable slur is still allowed to run and run. Similarly, with the way the Hamas fatality figures are constantly parroted, even though reputable statisticians are now debunking them. And every time this happens, every time we hear from the BBC a claim about genocide, every time we hear the Hamas casualty statistics being inflated with each report, it simply inflames and gives more turbocharging to anti-Semitism in this country.
Yeah, and I don't imagine that we would be quoting ISIS or any other similar group when it came to trying to establish the facts of, in this case, casualties and the like. People would just simply ignore that and say, well, why on earth would we take that seriously? But we seem, it looks to me, that we are almost quite relaxed about quoting Hamas, because that's, after all, where all of these figures come from.
Well, the BBC's get out of jail card has been that they preface it every time with a statement from the Hamas-run Ministry of Health, which is now simply a verbal tick that, you know, I don't think anybody really hears. And certainly those who hate Israel and who have anti-Semitic inclinations just rely on what comes after that statement. So, yeah, it is hugely worrying, and there's no sign of it abating.
Indeed. Stephen, thank you for your time. We'll watch this interest. We will speak again, of course, Stephen Silverman, who is from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism.